I'm not sideways. Awesome. Hi there. Welcome back, you guys. Welcome back to our Supporting Sensitive Children Facebook live chat. Say hi if you're watching live. Let me know if you've watched any of our videos, our emailed videos. They were sent to you if you signed up for the course. If you have not signed up for the course and you are just joining us by accident, you can go ahead and find the, hi Janita, you can find the links in on the page, and I'll post them in the comments, or someone else will post them. Hi there, how are you guys? So I want to tell you a little story. Just my hi Leslie. Leslie's got a full house and a new baby at home. Congratulations! I hope everything is going well with you. So I want to share with you guys a little story. My daughter just came home, my highly sensitive daughter, and she was practically in tears. She walked in because she was trying to just have some quiet time on the bus, and kids were not letting her do that. I guess her phone had died, and she just wanted to read her book and chill out after school. And there were some younger kids on the bus that would not stop bothering her. And some kids, you know, hi, Jessamy. Some kids, you know, would just let that roll off their back. You know, they'd come home and they might be angry about it. They might tell you a story about it, but they probably wouldn't get necessarily overwhelmed by it. And so my instinct, or our instinct, let me know if this might be your instinct. If your child comes home and they tell you about a rough challenge that they've had with a peer, my instinct is to sort of like tell her it's going to be okay. Don't worry about it. They're just young. They don't know what they're doing. You can just ignore them. Like all of these things to sort of dismiss it and try to like clear the path for her and be like, don't focus on that. But I didn't do that. And the reason I didn't do that is because Angela asked a question about empathy. I mean, this isn't the reason I didn't do it, but the big reason is because of the work that we're doing here. But Angela asked on one of our other chats, she asked, what does empathy really mean then? What is it really? And empathy is not pushing away what our children tell us and not trying to fix it, make it better, tell them it doesn't matter. All of those things that we do because we think we're trying to help. We think we're going to, help them even if we just tell them, toughen up, get through it. It's not that big of a deal. You're bigger than them. You don't have to listen to them. It's not, all of that stuff. Hi, Becky. Welcome back. I know you were bummed you missed us, I think, the other day. I'm glad you made it. So, my instinct might be to tell her those things and tell her not to worry about it. But I just hugged her. And I didn't say anything. I didn't have to say anything because empathy can be nonverbal. And empathy isn't me trying to come in and fix the problem or give her advice. Empathy isn't saying, oh, I know that stinks, but, here's what you can do next time. She's 13. She doesn't need me to tell her what to do. She much prefers that I don't tell her what to do. Any of you guys have kids that prefer that you don't tell them what to do? So that's my one little tip that I want to start you guys off with is just listen. Empathy is just listening. It's not trying to fix and solve, and it's not coddling. It's just, wow, that must have been frustrating, or that stinks. Or tell me more about what that was like for you. Or nothing. Or just a hug. And the hug helped her shake it off. She looked at something our cat was doing and, it was like, oh, Lewis, what are you doing? And she went after the cat and she went off to, chill out after her day at school. She didn't need me to fix it. She didn't need me to make excuses for those kids. And so when your kids come to you and they're frustrated and they tell you that things are awful and they stink and they don't like it and they want things to change, just hang out and listen. Empathy is just being there. It's just being in that space and not feeling the overwhelming need to rush in. Yeah. Tanita's saying I constantly have to remind myself not to try and fix it. Just hang out. It's so hard. It's hard. but I keep breathing. And, sometimes you do need to say things. It's not saying always. Melissa's asking, how do you stay empathetic when they repeat? But why do I have to do that, Mom? When nothing you say stops the but why? So we'll talk about that, right? So I'm going to come back to that question, Melissa. And thank you for joining us again, you guys. All right, so just welcome back. If you're just joining us, say hi in the comments. Let me know if you've watched the videos. They're short. I try to keep them short, like 25 minutes, 20 minutes, and then a quick 10-minute video at the end, just so that you don't get so overwhelmed. Today, I want you to walk away with a plan of action. Like, here are some steps that I'm going to walk away and do. Because you can't do, again, any of those tips and tricks and all that stuff that we like to hear. How do I get my kid to do X, Y, Z? None of that's going to work until we plan some other things out. So we're going to create that plan of action today. I'll answer some of those questions that some of you emailed them in, and if you post them here. And then I'll tell you about the full series. There's 3 more live sessions. They won't be on Facebook. They'll be in our course classroom. So I'll tell you about the full series. And if you hang on until the very end, I'll give you guys a special bonus code discount offer. I'm not going to send it in email. I'm not going to send it anywhere else. It'll just be at the end of this video. Because if you hang out till the end of the video, I know that you want the help and you're looking for something, and I want to be there for you. So just me saying I watched 2 and 3 today. Awesome. Hi, Nikki. Thank you for joining us. So if you guys are just coming on, I'm going to go through the plan of action. We'll take some questions. I'll tell you about the full course and the bonus. And then we'll just wrap it up with some love. However we do that, some love. All right, so here's what I want you to do first. Before we talk about that plan of action, you guys have been telling me all kinds of amazing things about what's going on in your home and what you want to be different. So I just want you to close your eyes for a second and try to imagine, because I've taken you through the 3 sessions, right? These 3 courses, and we have a goal. Our goal is to build flexibility in our kids, adaptability, and resiliency, right? We want them to be able to move through struggle. What does that look like? So just imagine for a second if you get into one of those moments with your children, they're digging in their heels, your heart rate starts to go up because you don't know where this is going to go, and you know that they're heading into that dysregulation and that inflexibility and that, rigidness. What would it feel like if you followed the model, the steps? What would it be like? What would happen if you had that plan of action? I gave you the steps: support, stress, skills. You have to spiral through that. We can't build skills until we connect, regulate. That's the model. So what would it feel like to you if you were able to use this model, if you were actually able to take it and help your kids regulate, help them find, you knew the words to say or the actions to take. It's going to be different for everybody. So I can't just sit here and say, here, follow ABC, XYZ. But I can say, if this is your challenge and what you're struggling with and what your kids are struggling with, if we've identified that, we can put the model in place, the support, stress, and skills plan of action. Right? We'll talk about a little bit of specifics in a minute. But what would that be like? What would it look like? What would it feel like to you? Would it feel like more peaceful at home? Would you feel like you could get more sleep? Would you get more done? Is it about having a better relationship with your child? Just think about for a minute what that would look like. Or if that's not your situation, maybe you're always having challenges with, I had one mom write in and say that her 11-year-old is constantly, and here's this language again, you guys, instigating, pestering, annoying his siblings. It seems like he's always trying to just do it on purpose. Again, we talked about a little bit about that yesterday. So if that's what's going on, maybe there's some sibling stuff. What would it be like if you knew that you could come in and not just play judge and jury and say, who's tired of having to come in between 2 siblings and figure it out for them? All right, you get 5 more minutes with this, or please stop, bothering your sister. you need to go into another room, and you're always like managing it. What would it be like if you could come in and just by your body language, your kids, their tension diminished and their stress started to diminish just by your body language. You don't even have to say anything necessarily. Okay. Or the other thing that I know you guys are really struggling with is school stuff. So your kids, what would it be like if your kids came home from school or from grandma's house or from, playing at the park with dad and they weren't judged? They were able to keep it together somewhat. Every kid feels that way sometimes, right? Justin is saying that would be amazing. I agree. That would be amazing if your kid had the social emotional skills to navigate conflict, right? We can't get rid of conflict. I've told you guys this. The idea is not to just get rid of behavior problems, because you can, right? We can punish and we can give the eye and we can give the swat on the backside and push kids through fear, through the fear funnel into obedience. But what happens when they're teenagers and suddenly the punishment is like, whatever, I don't care. And they no longer respond to you taking away your love and connection because they're so used to it that they're like, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to get blamed anyway. I know that that's how I felt as a kid, and I know that that was not my parents' objective. That was not what they wanted to have. And I don't think that's what you guys want to have either. I want teachers to be able to understand your kids. I want to be able to, I wish I could, be in there in the rooms when you guys have to go into like the IEP meetings, because I have, and I'm creating right now actually some more language scripts, because I think we go in these adversarial positions, not because we want to, but because we've been so worn down by our kids maybe not getting services or people not following the plan. And we don't know how to approach it without everybody shutting down and feeling threatened and feeling judged. Teachers feel judged and administration, feels judged and they've got this to worry about. But what if we could all get on the same page? The language that we learn, the conscious communication that we learn, is language for every part of your life. It's not just for language with your kids. So just think about what it would be like, because when I ask you to create this plan of action, I want you to be able to think about what your goals are, right? What would all those things I just asked you to envision and imagine, that's what you're after, right? So when we put the plan of action into place, we have to think about that and not, this XYZ behavior because they're, instigating here and pestering here, and how do I stop them from doing that? Because even if we stop it with the fear and the punishment, it's going to pop up again. It has to, because we're not actually helping our child work through it by going through the support, stress, and skills, helping them manage, finding out what helps them regulate, and then working on the building skills. Now, building skills doesn't mean that it's always nice. It's messy sometimes. Emotions are messy. But when my daughter came home and was upset, you might think, that's not really something to get that upset about or cry about. But for her, it was. And it was messy. And I had to just be okay with her being in that ugly space and not feeling good. A lot of the times we want our kids to just feel good because then their behavior might be better. And we're rushing things. So it's not just about behavior. So let's talk about the plan of action. Shall we? Yeah. Questions? Let me go through. I'm just going to open your questions. If you have more questions, post them. Jessica saying, we've had good days like that before. I would love to be able to be a calming presence more often. Yes. I love the way you put that, to be the calming presence, that when you walk in, they suddenly feel safe. How many of you guys feel like when you walk in, your kids become more reactive? She says, it's so easy to want them to feel better, but they don't act better until they work through it. Yes, that's so true. Nobody likes to feel uncomfortable or feel left out or feel bothered or annoyed or whatever it is. But a lot of the times we're pushing it out. Like, for example, when we get angry, we tend to push it away, blame our kids. It's on their behavior. They're making me so angry. We have to get in touch with why am I so angry in this moment? I mean, yes, they're doing something, and yes, I want this to change. That anger is telling me I want something to change. But who's got the bigger ability to change in the situation? It's not the kids with the immature brains. It's us, but it's hard. And that's why we're coming together here in our community. It's about support. It's about like somebody saying, oh, you get it. Or you read in the comments, somebody has the exact same situation as you, and finally it feels like, okay, I'm heard. So many of you guys have written in, somebody on the YouTube page, the video I posted on the YouTube page right now, and they wrote that this video made them cry. And I don't know if it's what their gender is, but they said, it's not easy to do that. It's not easy to find something on YouTube that makes me cry. And so many of us are just stuck in this feeling like there's something wrong with us or our kids, or like our discipline isn't good enough because people are telling us they need more discipline. They just need to learn. And so we then pass that down. We don't necessarily blame our kids, but they feel that as blame when we're trying to change them all the time. When we're trying to say, just do it this way. I told you once, just do it this way. Why can't you get it together? Okay. Plan of action, right? You guys, all right, post your questions. That's what I was doing. I was looking in the group to make sure. I see some of your questions, but I want to make sure that I'm seeing them all. Yesterday was cuckoo crazy. I wasn't getting any of those questions, really. All right. I'm going to have some water, too. And 2 and 3. Who else watched the videos? Let me know if you guys watched the videos. I wonder if it's going to let me do that. Oh, there we go. Now I see some questions coming through. I want to read those. Becky's saying, I have gotten better at being a more calming presence in the last few days. That's awesome. Had gotten into a bit of a rut with it last week. Son has needed loads and loads of physical activity to keep him calm after school. I've gotten involved and it's been calmer. I'm so glad that you recognize his need for that activity. It's so regulating for our kids, you guys, and they don't get enough, especially at school. They're not really, they don't get a lot of opportunity. Even in the younger grades, they're not getting a long recess in time to really, move their bodies. Even if they have a class that they get to sort of walk around and sit in different areas, they're not getting to run and bump into stuff and climb trees and really use their body and their brain so they get practice working together. And when we live a sedentary lifestyle, I mean, I'd hope that nobody does, but I know I'm at the computer for work so much of the time. We don't want our kids just sitting all day. It's not good for their brains, for their bodies, for their health, for any of that. Okay, that's awesome, Becky. So I'm glad that you recognize that. I'm going to have some water. And then I'm going to talk about the plan of action. All right, so I asked you guys at the beginning of our series, in our first Facebook Live, I asked you to set some goals. So how many of you guys set some goals? Did you set those goals? Because I want you to think back to them now and bring them up. Get out your piece of paper, your highly sensitive child checklist, or you can write them down now. Don't just think about your goals. Write them down. Whenever we do work in my classes, you have to write stuff down, okay? It's not enough to just think it. You'll forget it, and the act of writing, it's going to reinforce it for you. It's going to make it more real for you. You have it on the paper. I know, and I don't know the science behind it, but I know that when we take notes and write with pen, that stuff sticks more than if we just type notes in a computer. So grab a pen and write out some goals. What do you want your house to look like? What's not working? Is it every morning getting out the door is just a hassle? Write that down. That one of your goals is to have a smooth morning transition from, wake up to school. Is it bedtime? Is it homework? Is it sibling interaction? Think about just the goal for your child right now. We'll get to your goal, but just your child's goal. What do you want? Now, I know there might be a lot of things. Remember, we talked about if there's so much that you're working on. Is it just that you want to help them feel more supported and have tools for their anxiety in certain situations, like maybe at school, or, you know, when they have to, if you have an older child that has, you know, a job, or they have a lot more independent activities at school where that might make them anxious. Do they have the tools to support them? Or where, you know, where are they feeling those anxieties? Where do you want to help your children? And then what are your goals? Do you need to work on your tone of voice? Sometimes our tone of voice is all our sensitive kids need to completely unravel and become locked down into major meltdowns. Someone is saying we had a major, it's just me, she's saying we had a major meltdown a couple of days ago. A friend was over and they like dressing up, and then we couldn't find, let's see if that opens. We couldn't find the friend's shirt to change, so she had to bring the dress home. 30 minutes later, she was still screaming about the dress. Okay, so, you know, this reminds me of the story I think I may have told you guys when my daughter, she was younger, but there was just a change in what she expected. And we weren't going to get a sweater that she was expecting. And just that small change made her melt down, like couldn't reach her. Wasn't able to stop it because she just spiraled so fast. And I had to let her work through it. And then she had something like that happen when she was about 12. And they're few and far between now. But I can tell you that when she was younger, I worried. I worried like you guys probably worry about your kids. About, are they ever really going to move through this? There was a time when she was about 4.5, almost 5. And we were moving across the country, and she was and obviously there's a lot of, you know, just stress, temporary stress that goes on with that. And she had become, I picked up on my stress, whatever was going on. She was in a phase where she was really aggressive, super aggressive, like scratched her other 4-year-old friend's face, left a huge mark. And to the point where his mom, my friend, was like, I'm sorry, I can't have her over because I can't watch them and I'm afraid she's going to hurt my son. Like, has anybody had that embarrassing mom moment where your child is like physically aggressive to the point where people are afraid to have you in their house? Now, this is a very short time, but it was very intense. And it was very real. And I tell her about that story now, and she looks down and she gets all embarrassed. She's like, I can't believe I did that. You know, because she wasn't a bad kid that needed discipline. She was a kid that was picking up on a lot of stress that was going on from a really big transition. And she didn't have the, she wasn't eloquent enough to say, Mommy, I'm feeling very stressed by what you and Daddy are going through, and I don't like all of these boxes, and I'm afraid that everything is changing, and I'm too little to understand that we're moving and leaving everything behind, and I don't know if it's ever going to be the same again. That's what she was thinking, but she wasn't able to actually say that. So if we can decipher what our kids are actually trying to tell us, we can move through those moments. And she is a lovely child. She has no aggression issues. That was a period in time, but it was so embarrassing. And to have people think that, you know, this kid was whatever they wanted to judge her as, it was mortifying, right? It was not a good feeling to feel like that, especially as, you know, parent educator with the crazy, you know, child, right? So I don't want you guys to think if I ever give you any, you know, idea that I have I have this all figured out and it's all perfect. I dipped my shirt in coffee and leaned over and it dropped in coffee, and I mess up with my kid all the time. So I'm just a hot mess under all of this, really. But I'm here with you to do it together, because parenting is messy. And it's not supposed to be perfect. We're just supposed to be able to be conscious while we're going through it. Yes, we were blamed for my daughter biting when it was really about the friend who went from nice to screaming bloody murder. Whatever was going on, it doesn't feel good. And there's another example of, people misinterpreting our kids' actions. And hey, sometimes they have to put boundaries. I get that my kid couldn't be there. She wasn't allowed, I couldn't be there. And I knew that my friend obviously couldn't be there to watch them, and she didn't want to leave them alone. So that was the consequence, really. It was, we can't play with our friend. We have to, just hang out together. But here's the thing. If you have a kid that's really aggressive, make their world really, really small. Don't give them a lot. They can't handle it. They're telling you they can't handle it. If they're getting really aggressive, they're letting you know that it's too much, but they're not able to do that in words. So it's up to us to start to decipher the behavior and then work on it. So what are you going to work on? So figure out just 2 small goals for you guys. Don't try to figure everything out at once. You'll overwhelm yourself. You'll try a couple things and then you'll get frustrated and you'll walk away and you'll think, well, that didn't work for me. Right? We were talking about that yesterday. So set small goals, achievable things, because we want to work through things one at a time so that we also don't overwhelm our kids. They can only focus on so much. All right. So what do you need to work on? What is the goal here? That's your first step in your plan of action. That's your first thing. Make sure that you have your goals. Some of you guys maybe are just joining us, so you may not have gotten to that part yet. So get your goals. And then what is preventing you from achieving these goals? What is if your goal is, so your personal goal is to not get triggered. Now, obviously, sometimes we get angry, right? If somebody's, doing something and it angers us, it doesn't mean that we're supposed to, get rid of all the emotion and live in la la fairyland. No, it means that I get the anger, I feel it, but I breathe into it and I go, okay, I'm feeling angry. I notice what's happening into my body. We go through all the steps of self-regulation. Support, stress, skills works for us too. How do I regulate myself? Right? We have to, if that is my goal, to not get triggered, what's stopping me from being self-regulated? So I could give you guys ideas. There's all kinds of things that you can do for self-regulation. But what's stopping you from actually putting that into place? That's the real question here. It's not, how do I change the kids? How do I make sure they listen? It's, if the goal is self-regulation and not getting triggered, we have to ask the question, why am I getting triggered? And you might not know. A lot of us aren't really aware of why our behavior is what it is. We've never really talked about it. Nobody ever said that was important. Nobody ever really probably told you that your emotions were important, and that your emotions and your perception were driving your behavior and your choices. So if that's your goal, what's stopping you? Now, for your kids, if your goal is that your children, using the example before, have an easier transition, you make mornings peaceful. What's getting in the way? Now, I know we can say, well, my kid doesn't do what I ask them to. That's what's getting in the way. I know. Say that and then move to the next step. What's the next part? What's getting in their way? Is there a stress challenge? Are they anxious about a test, about a social situation, about a teacher that they don't connect with? Is it a support thing that they don't feel like that they're isolated at school, that they feel alone, that they don't feel like they have anyone to go to? Is it a skills challenge where their executive function, and all kids, especially young children, their executive function is very weak and very limited. So you can't just say, go get dressed and expect them to get dressed and come back dressed. I know that it seems like we should do that because you're like, go get that lollipop, and there you go get that lollipop, right? But it doesn't totally work that way when we don't have that motivation, autonomy, and interest, right? But there are things we can do. But what's getting in the way for your child? Because the reason that your child isn't getting dressed is completely different. So your 7-year-old may not be getting dressed for a completely different reason than the 14-year-old is dawdling at in the morning and not getting up. Completely different reasons. So what are the two goals? First action step. Second action step, what's getting in my way and what's getting in my child's way? Answer those two questions for us. And I know Melissa was asking a question about, what does empathy look like when the teen repeatedly keeps asking, but why do I have to, Mom? So this is where, we want to give lots of answers. We want to just give information. Like, here are all the reasons you should be happy, and then just get through it, right? And sometimes empathy is just about acknowledging, I can tell that you're unhappy and that you don't want to do this. So prompt them with a question to investigate. Why do I have to? What's most distressing for you? What's most upsetting? What's most frustrating for you about this that you have to do? Investigate what they don't like about it. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to change it. But we're making connections with our kids. We're not trying to just move them. Life is not about do this, do that, everything, and then we just exist and everything is happy. Life is about engaging. It's about interaction. It's about learning and growing together. We're not parenting our kids and just like it's a job and we have to go in and do a certain XYZ. We're in such a rush to have kids that are better and faster and number one, and they're respectful and all of these things that we want little adults. So when they keep asking that question over and over again, and you've acknowledged that it's, let me go open your question, Melissa, a little more. Have acknowledged their feelings, provided basic answers, or do I say I'm not sure what else to say and leave it to process? Yes! Answered your own question. Awesome. Well, kiddo, I don't know what else to say. That seems like a lot, and it's not fun. Maybe you share a story. Empathy isn't always sharing what has happened to you, but once you've moved through and you've acknowledged the feelings, you can even ask, what can I do for you? What can I do to help you get through this? We can't change the XYZ, whatever it is. How can I help? When we're using the model, when we're trying to keep our focus on helping our kids build skills that they can use, the life skills that we need, we have to keep our focus on that goal and not just changing that behavior. And sometimes that means, sitting with it and saying to your kid, I don't know what to say. This is tough. I'm here to support you. And with little kids, it's often just about they want to know that they're going to be okay and that they're still loved. I mean, older kids want to know that too, sometimes, depending on, whatever the situation is. But little kids, we can move in with our comfort, our connection even more because they are soothed by that. Remember, relationship is a stress buster. That was our video too. So those are your two action steps. Now your third action step, your final step, what are you going to do to change your XYZ, your goal, and what's getting in the way? So if your goal is not getting triggered and you figured out what's getting in your way is that you don't have enough you time, that you're constantly, maybe you have 5 kids and there is just no time left for you, at least none that you've built in. What are you going to do? What can you do? I'm talking little tiny, tiny things. I don't want you to be like, oh, I can't, I have no time. I can't change anything. I have to work. I have to do this. I get it. I am right there with you guys. So come back into our community when it feels like that, when it feels overwhelming, and post your question and we will support you. But also, can you do one action step? You have to be able to take some concrete action towards your goal. So what is it going to be? Is it that you're going to just go out once a month? Because let me tell you, if you have not been out in 6 months, planning that once a month date with your best friend or your spouse or your partner or whoever is something that will really, you'll look forward to it. It'll give you the connection, what you've been craving. What's missing? What's missing? Oh, I've been missing connection. I've been spending all my time with the kids. I'm stressed out, and that's why I'm getting triggered in that moment. Which might be completely different, like me not having enough connection time with adults, completely different reason than why somebody else is getting triggered because of their personal history. And they grew up with a lot of their own anger and blame or violence or trauma or whatever it is. So yes, keep your focus on the goal, not the behavior, because otherwise you're going to run around and you're going to be putting out behavior fires all day long, and you're going to exhaust yourself if you're not already exhausted now. Or you're going to be trying to figure out how to fix everything instead of, what can I do in this moment to help my child? And sometimes, our kids have behavior problems that are solvable, but we can't just fix things for them. Sometimes solving a problem means, all right, what's getting in the way, right? Again, solving a problem means knowing what the goal is. Where am I heading? Do I want my child to be, independent in getting ready for bed? If that's your goal, what's getting in their way? Do they not have a whole, a list to follow? Are they getting distracted by the television? Are they getting distracted by other peers? I mean, what's getting in your kid's way or your way? That's what we have to figure out. All right, you guys, that's the plan of action. Write it down and then answer those questions. Come back and keep posting we can keep the conversation going here and posting on the group page. I'm going to go to questions. Oh, I have to tell you about the full series and give you the bonus offer for you guys that are still hanging on, which is so awesome. Let me make sure I have it right so I give it to you right. And you've got the plan of action. Questions. We talked about what real empathy looks like. I just gave you some of those examples about it. It doesn't need to be verbal. It really isn't about solving, fixing. Once you acknowledge, sometimes it's about saying, I hear you, and just repeating that. Or asking, what can I do for you? What would you like to happen next? Prompting our kids with a question. One of the questions that came in was from, this kind of fits right in. We had a 11-year-old, the highly sensitive one, who doesn't seem to know when to stop and instigates with his siblings. And then mom tries to stay calm until she finally can't anymore. And then she knows, but here's what she says. She says, I know that my reactions fuel the situation, but what should I do differently? So this is where you want to ask, right? Well, what am I doing now? What is his behavior? When you look at an 11-year-old, this is about flipping the script on behavior too, you guys. When we say he's just, pestering or instigating, or the really great thing that she said was that he seems to self-sabotage to annoy someone. It's like just to annoy, to maybe get a reaction. So what if we flip that around and said that it's not that he's self-sabotaging, but that he's unable to ask for the connection that he's seeking? He may be going in there trying to get a reaction because he's feeling what inside and unable to express it or to tell somebody. Maybe he's feeling left out, lonely, bored. What's going on for him that we're not addressing, and we're only seeing the behavior? Behavior is a communication. That's one of our number one principles. That behavior is telling us something. We can't just say, I want to get rid of that, because then we're trying to get rid of exactly the message that will help us help our kids regulate and help them build those skills. So we have to look at behavior and welcome it in, even when it makes us uncomfortable. But if it's making us uncomfortable, why is that? I know in the beginning of the series, in one of our first live chats, someone said that they were afraid that their child would never, ever stop, that it would always be like this. So I know that I'm asking you guys to have a little bit of faith, right? Faith in your kids, that we all grow up, because of our parents or in spite of our parents. I want your kids to feel supported, and I want you to feel like you're having an impact. And I know that when we go in and we feel like our kids just, people are telling us they just need more discipline. One of you guys, somebody saying, anybody else have a hard time getting their husband on board? Says he agrees, but always seems to forget in the moment. Yeah, because it's hard. It's hard to know what to say in the moment. Because when you're not punishing, when you're not taking things away, you're standing there and you're like, okay, what do I do now? Right? So the model, everything we follow the model, support, stress, and skills. there's so many different ways that we learn to apply the model. But I'm giving you guys the framework so you can start to do it. If you need more help, join the class. We're doing 3 more live sessions, and those are, group support calls where we get to connect one-on-one. And so if you want to if you're watching, you're still here, thank you for hanging out. Thank you for being a catalyst of change in your child's life. I know that you want peace in your home. So if you want to join the live series, I have a couple of different bonus offers for you. If you register, first of all, for you guys, I'm going to give you a coupon. It's easy. It's Facebook Live. No, it's FB Live. FB Live will give you 10% off of the full series. I'll post the links in this video, but they're also posted on the video page, video 3 page, where you can access that. But the FB Live will take an extra 10% off of the course just for you guys. I'm not sending that in email or anything, so write it down here or come back and check the video, because I won't be sending that out here. That's just for you guys that have joined us here live. And so many of you have joined every session, and I'm just so grateful that for your participation and for connecting with me here. And again, just for being, wanting to change the relationship that you have with your children, because also you go out there and you represent, Teach Through Love, conscious parenting. You're representing this change, this conscious communication change. The way people see you talk to your children, it's amazing. They will, they watch it and they're amazed. They're amazed at the relationship. They're amazed at the influence that you have with your kids, that you don't need to use force and threats and all of those things that don't work when they get into the teenage years. And that's when we really have to worry about, their mental health. And when they start to become teenagers and they go out and they connect with their peers, are they really set up to deal with the pressures and the stress that they are going to be faced with as they get older? That's what we want to make sure that we're doing. We're building skills for life skills that they can take forward. It takes a little bit of time for any kid, but especially our sensitive kids, but it can be done. Absolutely can be done. So FB Live for your 10% off. All right, you guys, I'm going to check for questions. Anybody else have, and another thing about getting your partners on board. I think I said this, right? Use the communication that we use with our kids. If you're trying to, what's your goal with your spouse, right? It's not just to have them agree with you. Find the common goal that you have for your kids, and then approach them with that goal. Instead of trying to remind them, of what they should be doing or how they should be empathizing, because nobody wants to be told what to do, especially not our kids or our partners. Just go in and say, I know we have this goal. We both have a goal for our kid, and here's what it is. I know that we both want X, Y, Z. How can we get that? Let's partner up. Work together to do it. Don't just try to say, you're doing it wrong. Do it different. Look what's happening. You're not doing it right. Because then we start to build more walls with our partners too. And then everybody in the family has their walls up and they're in defense mode. So that's what we're trying to move out of. We're trying to move out of the stress, move out of the chaos, and move into peace. Not free of conflict, right? It's not always just easy like that, but we can absolutely have connections and time with our kids that are free of stress and free of all the tension and the behavior outbursts that you might be living in right now. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me here today. Go check out the rest of the videos if you have not watched them all. They will also be up through the weekend before they come down, so check those out. Let me know if you have other questions that come up. I would love to connect with you live, and I would love to see you inside our course community for supporting sensitive kids live. All right, you guys, have a great rest of your week. I'll see you soon.